Hello and welcome to my stream of Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars, which, as I mentioned earlier, is probably my absolute top favorite Super Nintendo game of all time. Now, that kind of says a lot considering the Super Nintendo really had a huge, amazing library. And granted, there are some amazing games out there, even maybe better RPGs. This one is on the more simple side, but it does hold a special place in my heart because it's literally the first RPG game I ever played. In fact, I had no idea what RPG even stood for before I even played this, or even while I was playing this. So first things first, let me show off some cool items. So here is a official player's guide for the game. I remember being so attracted to this game that, like I said, I had no idea what an RPG was, but the graphics were so shiny and so beautiful, very similar to like your Donkey Kong Country games where Silicon Graphics went and they rendered extremely detailed models, 3D models of every single thing, the characters, the enemies, and then once those were rendered, the company, in this case Squaresoft, would then take all of those things, flatten them down into two-dimensional sprites, and then convert them as best possible to the limited graphical ability to the Super Nintendo. So even like, for example, one particular sprite can only be consisting of 16 colors, but remember, one of those colors is always transparency. So really you only have 15 colors in any given model that you see here. So I think they did an amazing job. Another kind of interesting facet is this is by Square, or Squaresoft, which I believe this is one of their last games they ever made for Nintendo until they kind of had this many long years temper tantrum hiatus, because they were more into making the Japanese style RPGs. They wanted to be using a CD-based system, and why, look, who comes along and offers that? Sony PlayStation. So really, Squaresoft, even though they had released their early Final Fantasy games for Nintendo systems, like for example on the Super Nintendo, in North America we have Final Fantasy, 2 and 3, which actually, when it comes to their Japanese equivalents, were Final Fantasy 4 and 6. So beyond that point, Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9 were all for PlayStation, and then it took years before really Square, now Square Enix, released anything that was exclusive to Nintendo. And then, honestly, I think Nintendo is the only company in the world anymore that actually sticks to exclusivity. Even like, for example, what Horizon Zero Dawn was supposed to be like this amazing exclusive PlayStation game, and yet it's now released on PC. I mean, I could go on forever about games that are supposed to be exclusive, but they were only exclusive for what, a year or 2 years? So they're called timed exclusives now. Awesome. So that's a little bit of history of the game. And one other fun fact, I actually got this player's guide before I actually ever got the game. And I remember looking through the player's guide, really not even understanding, because I'm more used to, okay, every Mario game is supposed to be a two-dimensional platformer, right? So by looking at some of these screenshots, it's like, yeah, but where is Mario supposed to jump? It like didn't make sense. It didn't compute, but that's kind of a cool story. Another reason why I absolutely love this game is because there are so many optional hidden things, like side quests or things that you can completely miss, or things that the developers and programmers spent a lot of time packing in stuff that you might never even see. And look at this copyright date, 1996. As we've mentioned, sure, games that are released today have like millions of hours poured into them, it seems like, and it's almost impossible for any one human to play it, even if they only played that one game, and see every single thing that has ever been added to a really high budget video game. But here we have that same sort of feel to this Super Nintendo game that's many years old. So that's cool. I'll kind of see about how many optional things, and in fact, If we played this a little bit longer, we would then see one extra addition to this title screen. And in fact, I never noticed this until I was working on my own ROM hack a little bit, that we only see the castle here. There is no sword. So stay tuned for that. Now, as I mentioned, this game is a little bit on the shorter side. I don't really mind streaming this as an RPG because I should be able to read pretty much all of the text, which is something I've been debating in my mind as far as I really don't think I want to, like if I stream Earthbound or stream Final Fantasy 2 or 3, do I really want to read every single dialogue in that game? Like, I don't know, I'm still debating about that. I almost want to just, because it'll be visible, like any viewers can just read it themselves, and I'll just give a reasonable amount of time for the viewer to read the text themselves. But I do need to track this down because back in the day, in a certain Nintendo Power magazine, it mentions that this person supposedly claimed that they have played Mario RPG through from beginning to end 128 times. And no, I'm not just making that number up, but obviously, because that is my favorite number, that has vividly stuck in my mind. And I remember reading that thinking, there is no way they've played this game that many times. But honestly, if you kind of have the premise figured out, it is a pretty short game. Especially if you don't do all of the side quests or whatever, if you just stick to the main story. But I really want to see if I can even find that Nintendo Power magazine and show the proof that I'm not just making that story up. So speaking of ROM hack, when I first started making my Super Mario World ROM hack, I had this kind of my first idea. Now let's pause that thought for a moment, because with my actual ROM hack, I've been extremely secretive about it with my nieces and nephews because I want them to like be completely surprised when they're able to have the chance to play it. But here's something that's I didn't adapt. One of my first ideas was, wouldn't it be so awesome to be able to have like a Mario RPG styled or themed ROM hack, like have all of the music, have level themes that are closely matched to maybe even the world map. But obviously this idea was like way too complex for me when I first started out. But now that I kind of have my at least 0.91 version done, I did see to about, hey, now that I've learned a whole lot of stuff, can I like recreate this title screen? Can I recreate the file selection screen in Super Mario World? And so I have jumped through some obstacles there, and I really want to, maybe even as a collaborative project, make in Super Mario World a ROM hack completely based around the premise of Mario RPG. I think it would be really fun. I don't necessarily want to design all the levels myself. I just want to do all of the guts and the programming, and maybe, like I said, an awesome collaborative project with somebody who would be willing to make some really fun actual platforming courses that we could insert into that.